Hey everybody, welcome to the 6th episode of the Heavy Debriefings podcast. This is the now 35-year-old Josh Rundquist along with
The Metal Faerie.
And we have a slobber knocker, barn burner filled show for you this week. We're covering a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and a lot of things in between. And I should do a little bit of a warning here. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff with my birthday. We're going to be covering our favorite albums from 88 to 22. And for those that are not into it, we're also going to be covering a lot of wrestling coverage.
Yes.
Which is all the importance of the timestamps, which are now a part of the show. So if you're not into wrestling, you might want to skip out on the middle of the show, but I think there's some very funny things that's going on in the wrestling world that you will enjoy.
Absolutely.
But first, might as well get it out of the room right here. I am now 35 years old, and as of recording this, I am about 22 hours in to being 35 officially, as I was born on 3:15 p.m. on August 19th, 1988. And we had a pretty good time for my birthday over the last several days. We've had a lot of fun-filled adventures.
Yes.
One we'll be talking about later in the show, but let's get into the stuff that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, you had some plans, or at least you thought of some ideas.
Yeah.
How did that all come together for, like, finding out what to do?
I kind of just did a little Facebook search to begin with of events and kind of picked out some fun things that I thought could be of interest for us. And then there was just some things I kind of knew about offhand too, so.
And might as well start it when I first woke up. I woke up around 9 a.m. and
Yes.
where I usually sit on the couch when we're watching TV, I found a couple bags of stuff, which I found really cool. The first one that I opened had a very nice, sweet card from you, which I truly appreciate.
Yes.
And then I opened that up, and I found the complete second volume of the Treehouse of Horror comics.
Yes.
Last year, I got Volume 1, and now I have Volume 2, and I know Volume 3 is probably going to be coming out next year if we follow the rule of threes.
I would assume so.
But one thing that we haven't even really talked about on the show yet is our newfound infatuation with comics.
Yeah. We touched on it a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, like we haven't gotten into it like the kind of comics that we have or anything like that, but this year we really just like dive deep into collecting comics.
Yes.
And while we're not always the biggest readers, I mean, we do look at them and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But especially with IPs that we care about, and there's a lot of cool stuff that goes into that. I have always been a Simpsons fan, and I did have a couple Simpsons comics back in the day, and I wish I would have appreciated them much more than I did.
Yeah.
But last year, getting the first collection of all the Treehouse of Horror comics really set into motion me wanting to get back into comic culture again.
Yeah.
And then it took several months, but we finally started getting back into it about like March this year.
Right around.
And we both got some really nice collections going on. We both got like our own little comic book box filled with stuff.
We do.
Both are pretty much nearly filled. I think you have a little bit more than me because of one
Maybe a little
particular
bit.
score that you got that was
Yeah.
like jaw-dropping of what you got. Maybe we'll do a show dedicated to like talking about our comics in the
Yeah.
future.
We'll get into that.
But yeah, getting the second volume is just so cool. It's gonna look so cool having that set up, and whenever Volume 3 happens.
Yes.
But then I also had a second bag, and this goes back into February of this year, where you wanted to get me a late-stage Christmas present due to things that were going on.
Yeah.
And around the time, we were thinking, like, we should get me a PS5 Pro controller.
Yeah.
The PS5 Pro, the official Pro controller was talked about around that time, around the Christmas time, and then we saw the price of it, and we kind of did like a little tug of the collar
Yeah.
on that. But we wanted to see what other ventures there were, and it turns out there's ones that are like $600-700.
Oh, yeah.
Which I would not touch.
No.
And then there was ones that are a little bit cheaper, but thanks to some finagling, we got a Razer Wolverine V2 Pro controller
Yes.
for the PS5 for a pretty reasonable deal compared to what it normally goes for.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, it feels incredible. Like, I have an Xbox version of this as well, too, so I kind of have the Pro controllers for both of them because I play games so much, and it feels so much like the Xbox One. It has an amazing grip on it. It's got the back trigger buttons, which are so cool. to mess around with. They're nice and clicky. I know that's not for everybody, but I love the nice clicky sound that
We're a
Razer
clicky
has.
household.
Yes. It doesn't, we both have clicky keyboards at our separate offices, and it doesn't bother either of us. We love the clicky sound.
No.
So that's one way to maintain a relationship. When you
Yes.
use keyboards, make sure that you're either both silent or clicky.
Yeah,
because if it's
driving they're nuts.
exactly. But I haven't got to mess around with that too much, although I will be talking about that a little bit more when we get into the gaming section. But I almost started to cry when I got that because it just brought back a lot of memories of that first PS4 Pro controller that you found for a jaw-dropping deal of like $35.
Yeah.
And just seeing one again, and it just felt so nice to have one of those, and it just
Yeah.
meant so much to me. And maybe it wasn't the reaction that you were hoping for. I think he wanted me to be more jumping for joy.
The silence was a little confusing at first. I'm like, oh, man.
But no, it meant the absolute world to me. And I should also add, I was still waking up at the time.
Yes.
It takes a long time for me to be able to wake up.
Yeah.
But that meant the absolute world to me. And that wasn't even the whole day.
No.
There were so much more fun-filled adventures to be held.
Yes.
Now, what happened after I looked at the presents?
Well, then I showed you your cake. We didn't eat cake quite yet. That was later in the day, but I had to show it off right away. Because every year I tend to kind of pick a unique saying or kind of icon to put on his cake. There's been quite a few interesting ones in the past. We did To a Whale of a Boyfriend at the time, one time, in honor of Homer and his cake to Marge.
Wedding cake.
Yes, yes. We've done a lot of good ones. So this year I chose Comic Book Guy since we have gotten into comic books so much this year. And one of his favorite phrases to us, and one that Josh does say all the time, is, "Oh, I've wasted my life."
But Aquaman, you can't marry a woman without gills. You're from two different worlds. Oh, I've wasted my life.
So I got a little Comic Book Guy Lego and put that on the cake along with that phrase. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm still amazed that the store that you went to actually had no problem saying I've wasted my life on the cake.
They have been very accommodating. Like a couple different, Hy-Vee and Lunds and Byerly's have both been great working with me.
So if you're in the Midwest and you know of Hy-Vee and Ives and Barley, I think you should check those out because apparently they will make the cake that you want.
Yes.
But yeah, I took a few pictures of that. I took a few pictures of the presents that I got up to that point. And then we decided to do our little venture. We got a couple drinks. No, not alcohol. You had a Sprite, I had a Diet Coke.
Yes.
And we ventured off into the hipster section of St. Paul to check out Clutch Brewery, but not for the beer, not for the new CBD that they have there, although I was very tempted to try the CBD because it is now legal here in Minnesota. I want to see what all the hubbub is about. But they're also home to Minnesota's largest arcade and pinball.
Largest collection of
collection.
old arcade systems.
Yes. Okay, that's the better way to put it.
Yes.
But yeah, for $15 you get to play all of the arcade systems and pinball that you want to, with a couple exceptions on a couple pinball machines where you had to put in real quarters.
Yeah.
But it was 2 floors, which I found to be really, really cool. The first one I actually tried out was one of those not handcrafted necessarily, but one of those emulation arcade systems that had like all the different games that you could imagine. But we were looking for like the real arcade stuff,
Yes.
so I didn't mess around with it too much. First, I want that thing more than anything. But I did play Beavis and Butthead for the Super Nintendo on there for a little bit, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then we explored more on the second floor first, and there was a lot of really cool old school games in there with their original arcade cabinets. They weren't remakes, they were the original ones.
Yeah.
And there was ones I didn't even know were on arcade cabinets, like Castlevania and Super Mario Brothers. I thought those were just Nintendo Entertainment System games. So that was really cool to see that. I mean, some of them were a little janky, like the joysticks were a little hard to maneuver and stuff, and a little sticky, but That was really fun to see, like, the original ones that were there. That was so cool.
Absolutely.
Then we went into the downstairs part, which was the bigger attraction for a lot of things. I mean, they had a lot of fighting games down there. They had a lot of the old school Japanese arcade systems, which we had a lot of fun with.
Absolutely.
I think we spent our most time with that. You were playing Double Bubble, the Japanese version.
Bubble Bobble.
How was that for you?
Oh, that was great. I love Bubble Bobble. I played it a lot on Game Boy when I was younger, but yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah. Along with that, I got you to finally check out one of my favorite arcade games, Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Yes.
Which the big gimmick of that one is you get to pick up the 3 different characters at once, and you get to fight as that. As someone who kind of plays fighting games, but usually only with me, what was that like for you?
It was fun. It was fun. Definitely, like, didn't know a lot of the characters, so it was kind of hard choosing, making my choices, knowing who would have what benefits and stuff. But it was fun. I actually did better than I thought I would.
Oh yeah. I think I beat you by 1, but you were still beating me really good.
Yeah.
On there. We played Mortal Kombat 3 and 4.
Yes.
While you were playing Double Bobble, I was playing Tekken Tag Tournaments, which I haven't played since I was like 9, 10 years old, probably.
Yes.
There was a few games I wanted to play, but they were blocked off by other people, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Like even just looking at all the old school games that they
For
had
sure.
there, that was so cool.
Yeah.
There was one pinball game I wanted to play, which was the Dracula pinball game based on Francis Ford Coppola's version of Dracula, which unfortunately was out of order, but I really wanted to play that. But then we left, and I started hearing what almost sounded like a shotgun, but it was a snare being mic'd up. Apparently, in the near 100-degree weather that we had yesterday,
Yes.
they were going to be having a couple bands in a tent. And I could not feel more sorry for those bands. I mean, of course, they're getting paid and everything like that, but having to play in that kind of weather, that just had to suck.
Yeah, it had to be miserable. But it was fun overall. Definitely check out Starcade, and the entire place is fun. There's places to eat and everything, so it's really cool.
Yeah, and I definitely want to go back and explore a bit more of that. Maybe the CBD. But, see what kind of food they have there. Maybe have a drink, perhaps. But
Exactly.
we'll see what happens in time.
Yeah.
And then we went to a very different kind of place after that, didn't we?
We did. So when I was searching Facebook for events, I came across a small shop in Minneapolis, I think technically it's in, that was having a special day yesterday, and they were playing, if you are familiar with the sax guy from
The Lost Boys.
Lost Boys, thank you.
Our Lord and Savior.
Yes, they were playing a song for him on loop for the entire day they were open yesterday.
And what was that song?
I believe. I still believe. Sorry, I still believe. And it's kind of a running joke in our household, the sax guy, and how much Josh loves him. So I just kind of figured it'd be good to take a stop by there.
Oh, she thinks it's a joke, but it's all too real.
He has a secret shrine to him.
He is our Lord and Savior of the underworld. He is the best part of the Lost Boys, and I will not hear any different. But no, the store was a little not what we expected, but it was cool hearing I Still Believe. In fact, as I officially turned 35, that song was playing, of course, because they were playing that all day.
Yeah.
So it's my official theme song for being 35 years old,
Definitely.
I Still Believe.
Definitely.
If we could play music on here without getting copyright stricken, I would probably be playing this ad nauseum
It
as
would
well.
be our theme song.
Yes. And then we decided to go to one of our favorite places to go look at comics and action figures and stuff like that.
Yep.
Very cool place known as Nerdin' Out.
Yes, over in Invergrove.
Yes, if you are a wrestling fan, if you're familiar with All Ego Ethan Page, he and Danhausen actually made a video about going to this particular spot when they were last in Minnesota. And that's how we first heard of the place.
Yeah.
Which was, it looked really cool, and it's not too far away, and we've gone there a lot over times. I've gotten a lot of Simpsons comics from there, and a lot of Spawn comics as well, too. I'm a big Spawn guy. You've gotten a lot of cool stuff as there too, and
Absolutely.
we both decided to get one particular thing. I got a Poochie action figure, one of those really high-class premium action figures with multiple Poochie heads that you can put on and arms. He's got a guitar, even though it only has 4 strings in a flying V shape. He's got a skateboard. Just that perfect 90s pandering look, which I didn't think was pandering at the time, but looking back on it, it's like, oh, look at how cool I am, kind of stuff. But, it's all a part of the charm.
Yes.
I also have a robot Itchy from Itchy and Scratchy Land, which
Yes.
came with a bass drum and mallets and stuff like that, which Itchy is one of my favorite Simpsons characters. He's just so cute and so sadistic at the same time. Steamboat Itchy is one of my favorite things that they've ever done. But now I got 2 of those, which I find to be really cool. And you were looking at a few different things.
Yeah, I was debating. I was thinking about there was a couple little Puppet Master not action figures, but figurines, whatever you want to call them. But I really want to get some bigger sized Puppet Master figurines because these ones were just kind of tiny. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to get. Then when we were heading up towards the checkout, you saw a Funko set, which I don't collect that many Funkos, but it was one of Bret Michaels and
Brett? Yes. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Bret Michaels faced Sean Hart at WrestleMania
Yes.
12.
Sorry, Shawn Michaels. The reason I said Bret Michaels is when I was a little kid, I was convinced in my head that Shawn Michaels and Bret Michaels were related.
Just like how I thought Sting, the wrestler, was Sting from the Police.
Exactly. Sorry. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and a little WWE ring. Well, WWF ring at the time, because they obviously had a lot of iconic matches, but, one in particular.
Yes, that was based off of WrestleMania 12 with their Iron Man match.
Yes.
But it has the red, white, and blue ropes. It has the WrestleMania logo all around the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And it has them in the Funko Pop shape. And I showed that to you, and it just looks so cool.
It is.
I know it's not one that you would rather have had that been a Funko of.
Yeah, if I could pick any match, I would want Undertaker and Yokozuna with a casket match.
Possibly your favorite match, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But this is a second place because I was very, very into it.
Yeah, it was such a great series that they had with all their different matches and stuff. And, of course, both of them turned out to, be kind of problematic, like wrestlers of today are still problematic, which we'll be getting into very, very shortly. But that was really fun.
Yeah.
Got to do a lot of stuff. Then we came home. I got some chicken wings and fries.
Yes.
And potato wedges, and you did as well. And then we also had a crumble cookie each, and then we had the cake. So we had a nice, good old sugar coma after that.
Then we felt miserable and went to bed.
Although not before introducing you into the world of Seth Putnam.
Yes.
Randomly came up on my YouTube recommendations, a short little 12-minute documentary on the band name I can't say on here without getting possibly stricken down by YouTube. The band AC, but
Yes.
Seth Putnam.
Yes.
You heard the name before, obviously.
Oh, yeah, many times.
I've mentioned it, and I'm sure you've mentioned or heard of it well before you met me.
Yeah.
What was it like seeing the live stage antics of Seth Putnam?
I believe my original reaction to you was, what a miserable band, or what a miserable man and a miserable band.
Yeah, it's a short little documentary taking stuff from other places and stuff like that, but just like seeing all of his stage antics, falling out into unconsciousness on stage and like hitting his head right onto the floor, and people had to pick him up, and then he got right back into singing, or
Yes.
what he considers
Well,
singing.
Yeah.
And then it didn't feature it in the documentary, but I did have to show you the very last photo ever
Yes.
taken of Seth Putnam,
Ooh.
which, again, I can't really get into.
Google it.
Google it. Seth Putnam's last stage photo, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And he died the way he lived.
Yeah. He just seemed horrible, and their music was, not music.
Yes, one day, probably soon, we will be doing a What's Your Problem with Grindcore.
Everything. I can tell you right now, everything.
Oh, we'll get into that at some point. But, I think that's a perfect little segue
Absolutely.
to get into What's Your Problem. Now, I have to pit myself out for this one because Last week, I got to do an incredible interview with Mark Hudson of the band Dragonforce to talk about his brand new debut solo album, which is coming out this Friday through Napalm Records.
Yes.
And I had an amazing talk with him. We got to talk about gaming, we got to talk about video editing, we got to talk about life and Dragonforce and making a solo album, all that good stuff. And one thing that really stuck out to me is he mentioned how much he loved my interview style. Like, I never have questions in front of me. I have a couple ideas of what I want to cover because I want to cover all bases. But I want it to be as conversationalist as possible, ask follow-up questions, listen to what he says. If you're someone who does interviews, the biggest lesson I can give to anyone is actually listen to them and ask follow-up questions.
Absolutely.
That's all you got to do. You know, actually care about who you're interviewing, if you can do that.
And know your stuff when you're going into it.
Yes, because without going into names or details or anything, we've seen plenty of people on YouTube interview others that is just really hard to watch.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring all that up, of course, Blabbermouth actually picked up that interview as well too.
Yes.
So that was really cool of them. I don't know who from Blabbermouth actually does all of that, as I never send in my interviews, but I truly appreciate the fact that they take one of my interviews and promote it. But the reason I bring this up is because the Metal Faerie is quite possibly the biggest power metal fan that I know.
Yeah.
When we started doing the top 10 albums, the top 10 lists that we're doing for the show, I wanted to start with the top 10 power metal albums because that is one of, if not your favorite genre.
Absolutely.
But there's one band in particular you have never liked.
Yeah.
One band that was such a gateway for people getting into power metal and technical music, fast music.
Yes.
And, whether you heard it from Guitar Hero, whether you heard it from Headbangers Ball, whatever the case is, there's so many different ways that you could have gotten into this band.
Yeah.
Most likely, it was through the song Through the Fire and the Flames.
Yes.
We carry on. I can't sing. But you have such a disdain for Dragonforce.
Yeah.
So I just have to ask, what's your problem with Dragonforce?
So when they first kind of struck fame, shall we say, with their song being on Guitar Hero, like, to me, they just came across as such a stereotypical band. Like, they sounded cliche. It's like they sat down and were like, okay, what does power metal sound like? Let's do exactly this to draw in all the nerds. And, like, it just was almost offensive to me.
But you don't think there's other power metal bands that don't do the exact same thing?
I think they do it, like, not purposely. I think it's just natural for them. Whereas on Dragonforce, it felt like it was, like, forced. Like, we are doing this on purpose. So that's my first problem.
Okay.
And then the fans. Now I'm going to equate this to Stranger Things gate. So
I didn't know that had a gate attached to it.
I have attached a gate to it. So if you don't know, obviously, they featured a Metallica song on Stranger Things, and all of a sudden, Stranger Things fans are now all metal fans. And now, if a band like Dragonforce, like Metallica, actually draws people into more of the metal world, and they listen to other bands, and they find other bands that are just as great, I think that's a wonderful thing. But if you get caught up on that one band, or even if you explore others, but because they're the first thing you heard, you are convinced that they are better than anything else, like, even though they might not be, that's where I have the issue. And that's where I have the issue with Dragonforce fans. They think that Dragonforce and Herman Lee are better than anything in this entire world. And I'm not saying they're not talented people, but, like, let's push it down a little bit.
But, you can also make the argument for what you just said there for anyone who discovers any band.
Yeah.
Like, the first song that they hear or the first album that they hear is better than anything else. So what difference would that make if it's Dragonforce?
For me, it's, if you think it's better just because it's the first thing you heard, then I think it's messed up regardless. But for me, like, when I hear things, a lot of times the first thing I hear becomes the most meaningful to me, and that I understand. But if you can't let go of that, like, first is better mentality, I have an issue with that.
Oh, we could go so deep into that.
We could.
We do it all the time personally, and
Yes.
who knows, it might spill over on the podcast guess, at some point.
Yes. Beyond that, I have an issue with Herman. I have an issue with Herman.
Pee Wee Herman Lee, you have a problem with, huh?
Yes. So mainly his kind of social media presence on YouTube, TikTok, stuff like that. Number one, he's just very clickbaity, and I hate that. Number two, he did a video, I think it was a couple of years ago now at this point, about Ed Guy and how they had toured with Ed Guy back in like 2006, I think, or something like that, and how he was convinced that Toby hated him and Dragonforce in general, because they had made some like snide jokes throughout the entire tour about one of their songs.
Do you remember what that was about?
I can't remember the exact.
Well, it's about the particular song from Ed Guy, Tears of a Mandrake, which Dragonforce would do a very rough parody version of the name, which, again, can't really get into, but if you think of the word mandrake, and you think of something that almost rhymes with that.
Yeah.
But continuing on.
Yeah, so he went on and like he put this on YouTube to make it completely public and kind of draw attention to this feud that wasn't even a feud because it was years earlier. And so then Toby did a response saying, look, dude, I don't care. Like, it's fine, whatever. This is stupid. He's moved on and lives go on. So then Herman eventually did another video. Like he does reaction videos, which are annoying too. But he did a reaction video to the video of Avantasia with Floor. I forget the name of the song for their last album.
Yeah, that...
Regardless, so first off, when he starts a video, he's like, oh, lyric videos, and then that like an old school thing, which is just a total jab, you know it is. And then, you know, he goes on to praise the song and praise what Toby does and Avantasia and stuff like that, except for he says that they need more guitar solos. And then at the end, he's like, you know, Toby did another video after I did my video, and he says everything's okay, so if things are really okay, how about on the next Dragonforce album, you do some vocals, on the next Avantasia album I do some guitars, then we'll know it's really okay. He's just a BSer. He's trying to draw attention to himself. He's clickbaity, and that angers me.
So you're saying he's a YouTuber?
I mean, the worst kind. Yeah.
A few things from that. That's some of that I guess I wasn't privy to, particularly the second video. I knew very well about the first video, but I didn't know that he made a second video after that with all that. Yeah. Taking things out on Toby, that seems really strange to me because Toby is like one of the nicest people in metal.
And humble.
If you want to check out one of my very first interview that I did with Toby, he does an excellent story about getting a hotel room for 15 minutes just to go to the bathroom.
How relatable is that?
But yeah, it's the YouTube culture, unfortunately. I mean, that's a lot of those things you have to do to thrive.
Yes.
And, you know, doing the clickbait titles, doing the reaction videos, which I didn't know you had such a disdain for reaction videos. Because particularly, I watched some of them.
There are some I enjoy, but it depends on kind of how they're going about it. If it's done in kind of a jabby kind of a way, then I don't like it.
Whenever I've watched it lately, it's almost always just to see what your reaction is, because I know you're not familiar with some of the things and stuff. So I'm always curious about that. But I guess I see both sides of the coin with that, but I lean much more into your way of thinking. But I also think about like my experience with Dragonforce as well too, and it's almost entirely musically. Anytime I've ever interviewed Herman Lee, he couldn't have been nicer to me. Back when I was that drummer guy, he gave me a station ID for that drummer guy.
Yeah.
He was always really nice to me. His hair looks really good in person.
He does have beautiful hair.
Yeah. Did I interview Herman Lee with you?
Yes,
when we saw
I was with you.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to remember that.
Yeah, and he was very nice then. And again, I'm not saying they're not talented. I'm not saying he doesn't have any redeeming qualities. There's just things that annoy me.
And I was going to say, going back into how you felt like everything was kind of like a cliche power metal band.
Yes.
Over the years, they have changed their sound. Like, it's not just as fast as possible, just double bass, just solos. They do ballads now. They do covers. They do video game covers. They do explore a lot more territory.
Yeah, and to be fair, I have haven't really exactly listened to all their albums leading forward, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they do a power metal version of Death's Evil Dead, which is such an amazing cover to me. Like, hearing death metal done in a power metal sense.
Yeah.
With clean vocals, you know, kind of like when Sabaton covered Amon Amarth. I like it when you can take something from a different genre and make it your own, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But all of that said, getting back into my interview with Mark, I know this might be jaw-dropping to say, but I actually enjoy the solo album that he's made much more than a lot of the Dragonforce albums.
Yeah.
And the songs that you've heard, you have actually felt the same way about.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a lot more Japanese influenced, a lot of the J-rock, J-pop kind of stuff, but it still has a ton of power metal. There's some Dragonforce influence in there. I mean, how could it not? There's a particularly very sad ballad called Swan Song that really hits hard when you listen to it and you hear the lyrics. Like, it's a really good album, and you really should check it out this Friday.
Yes.
So, through everything that you said, you're still not going to be checking out Dragonforce really in the future unless I play it, right?
Yeah, most likely. Most likely.
Tried, folks. I tried. And that's her problem with Dragonforce. Coming up next is my particular favorite part of the show, my favorite segment that we continue to do, and I just love seeing the initial reactions of the Metal Faerie. This musical roulette of 3 random songs that I pick out for her to listen to. Some she has loved, some she has discovered that she liked, and some she despises more than ever before.
Yes.
What will we have this week? So first up, we're doing a little bit of a softball one here. I wanted to do one that wasn't completely gonna aggravate you, but we'll see if that even happens this time around. But starring band of Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth, Armored Saint.
Yes.
With probably their biggest known song, Rain of Fire.
Yes.
Although Last Train Home is arguably their bigger hit, but they're both off the same album. They're both fantastic. Having seen Armored Saint live and checking out, once again, Rain of Fire, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy Rain of Fire, but Armored Saint in general. They're a band that I never have dived super deep into. I've kind of just been like a light fan of them, but I've listened to them whenever they come up, and I've turned their music every once in a while, but I definitely need to do a deeper dive with them, I feel like.
I really think you would enjoy it as well, too, because like they have that great mix of heavy metal, glam rock sound, a little bit of thrash in there. Joey Vera of Fate's Warning plays bass on there. John Bush, obviously, my favorite singer of Anthrax, and no one will ever change my mind on that. Yeah, just a very fantastic band, and I was so fortunate to, or so happy to be able to see them at Prague Power and John Bush singing singing right next to us this song.
Yes.
Through the crowd, which I thought was so cool.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if you've never checked out Armored Saint yourself, I highly recommend that.
Definitely.
So we went from the world of Armored Saint, now we're doing some Swedish melodeath from the late 90s, early 2000s with arguably the most underrated of all of the Swedish melodeath bands, as I never see anyone in America appreciate these guys. I see Dark Tranquility get more love than this band. I think it's
I don't.
I guess I do. It's because they tour so rarely here anymore.
That is true.
Like, I don't think they've been here since we've been dating.
I don't think so. No.
Because we would have been there.
Yeah.
I, of course, am talking about the band Soilwork. And it's right after they stopped doing the more death metal side and they started really embracing melodeath with one of their biggest songs. I know they always end with this song because it is the perfect closing song, and it's one of my favorites, The Flame Out. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, no, I love Soilwork, and this is a great song, great album. I know we have kind of different favorite albums. I am a big fan of Sworn to the Great Divide, and you are not.
My least favorite Soilwork album.
But I love Soilwork, and this is an amazing album and song.
Now, have you checked out more of their early stuff? I mean, I know I always try to hint at you to do that, and I've played it. Okay, that's fair. And yeah, like, for the longest time, I loved the more proggy side of Soilwork, which is what they're especially doing nowadays. After Sworn to a Great Divide, they decided to get much more into being a prog metal band. But I've really come to know and love the melodeath side even more than I have before.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's because I'm appreciating prog less now, unless it's done really good in my eyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, those particular albums, like Figure Number 5, just absolutely absolutely spectacular work. And I would love to see them together with you
Yeah,
at some point,
that'd be
because
amazing.
you've never seen Speed live, and you really need to.
Yes.
And finally, I had to pick a song that I knew was going to make your blood boil. We're definitely going to be doing a What's Your Problem on one particular section of this at some point. Not sure when, but it will happen. But it is a band I love for the chaos and everything that they do. The blackened jazz band out of New York known as Imperial Triumphant. And this particular song, Mercurius Gilded, I always have a hard time saying that, features my good friend Max Gorlick playing a guitar solo, along with his dad making his metal debut, Kenny G, doing a sax solo, and they're trading off guitar solos throughout the middle section of this song. And I know a particular thing about you.
Yes.
I know it's not the only thing you don't like about this song, but you do not like the saxophone in almost anything you listen to.
Yeah.
So, a band like Imperial Triumphant probably could do a What's Your Problem on this kind of sound as well, too, but yeah, what's your thoughts on this particular song?
Oof, where do I start? So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of saxophone. Sorry, Lisa Simpson. But this song is another one. I kind of like, I forget which band we did the other week, but where it sounds like there's like multiple albums playing at the same time.
Madeline of the Well?
Yes,
probably.
Madeline of the Well, probably. It's like you said, chaos. And like, I mean, I want a little bit of chaos, but like, this is just like headache inducing chaos for me. It's just, I would probably choose this over Madeline of the Well just because this sounds like it could kind of fit in the right type of horror soundtrack. But outside of that, like, it's just not enjoyable to me. It's not something I could like listen to and just be like, yeah, this is good.
And I feel so differently. Like, I know one of your least favorite genres is jazz.
Yes.
And there's a lot of jazz influence throughout this entire album and the band in general. And you combine that with the blackened metal that they do. You combine that with so many of the other elements that are a part of the band. And the upcoming Rush cover that they got going on. So that's going to be... I'm very curious to see what song they're going to be doing and your thoughts on that, because you will be sitting down and hearing that.
I'm sure I will.
But no, there are some bands that I love the absolute chaos of things. Like, that's why I like grindcore when it's done right. That's why I love this kind of sound when it's done right. I love Madeline of the Well or KO Dots or Imperial Triumphant and other bands that just have no problem exploring all genres to see what works.
Yeah.
And I know that's absolutely not you.
No.
And I have to be very picky and choosy nowadays, like learning more and more, even after 10 years, learning what you like and what you don't like. And saving some things for when you're not home or when you're sleeping, and I'll just listen to it then.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's 3 random songs. I'd say 2 out of 3 ain't bad. All right, so coming up next here, probably the big centerpiece of this whole episode, is the conclusion of my 35-part series that I did on the YouTube channel, my top 10 albums from every year I've been alive. I covered the years of 1988 through 2022, which I just wrapped up for Saturday. Even though I've done that months in the past, it's finally out there now. I've covered 350 albums. And the Metal Faerie has also covered 350 albums, leading to up to 700 albums. I don't know the exact number because we do have some albums in common. It's not at 700, but it's probably closer to that than not. And instead of making it a 36-part series, I wanted to do this on the podcast where we go over and pick our collective top 10 albums from 88 to 22.
Yes.
Now, obviously, there's some years that we couldn't cover with you because this was covering my years.
Yes.
But I love the fact that you did this with me.
Yeah.
And, like, no one knows about it. No one knows what songs or albums or bands that you picked on your particular list when we did this, because we just did it while I was gaming on the PS5 and just listening to Spotify and going back and forth with it between each other, which was part of why I wanted to do the podcast in the first place, was us just going back and forth and having those loving memories continue on every week.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do a big old conclusion to all this, again, where we go through all of these particular albums and pick out the best albums from 1988 through 2022 on our collective top 350 lists. I will say that all of my favorite albums, regardless of the year, are a part of my top 10 list that I have.
Yeah.
Is that true of you?
Most likely.
I know there might be some that are older than 88.
Yeah,
That might be on there.
There's possibly, but this is most likely it, or pretty close to it.
So how hard was this for you to be able to do the top 350 to begin with?
It depends on the year. Some of the years were really easy because I came up with the exact number of of top albums. Some years I had way too many. Some years I didn't have enough. So it just really varied a lot.
And that makes a lot of sense. And that was the case for me too. Particularly the year 2015 was the hardest one for me because I had to drop I had the top 15, which I could not narrow down.
Yes.
And then I finally had to at some point. But yeah, other years were really easy. And other years I had a lot of them I had to cut out, unfortunately. But I think we picked the cream of the crop, as Randy Savage would say. And I am excited to see the top 10 albums from us from the years 88 to 22.
Yeah.
So who's going first here?
It's up to you.
Well, I guess since this is my series, we might as well
Yes.
go with my list first.
Okay.
And with all that, starting at number 10, most people may have never even heard of this band. They may not be awfully familiar with the style of music, North American folk metal, as I like to refer to it as. But it is the band Panopticon with their double album, The Scars of Man on the Once Nameless Wilderness, Part 1 and 2.
Okay.
What makes this one stand out is part 1 is pure black metal for the most part. There's a little bit of the North American folk, Americana, country elements that go along with it, but it's primarily black metal, black gaze, post-rock kind of sound. But the second disc is something that you wouldn't necessarily hear from me that I would enjoy, but it is bluegrass, country, acoustic Americana. Very left-wing stuff, which I truly appreciate, especially for a genre that's really not known for that.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of hard-hitting songs of like ghost stories and corruption, government, and death, and all these other things that when I've played Disc 2, you wanted me to shut it off because it was going to make you cry. There was a couple songs that just sounded so sad that I had to turn it off so you just weren't in a river of tears. But this probably is my favorite Panopticon album because of the diversity that's a part of it. So the latest album, and again, Into the Light, also might be my favorite album. It might be second place. It kind of goes back and forth. But this double album, and actually kind of a triple album, because there is a third disc of all the songs from Disc 2 that are just pure guitar. It's just acoustic. And I really love that one almost more than the other two albums. But this album has just been really near and dear to me, and it's made me appreciate this style of North American folk metal even more. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Panopticon, I there's definitely moments that I like with their music. Overall, it's not a band that I've really gone to myself, but I definitely don't mind some of it when you play it, so.
That's more than I could ever ask. What is your number 10?
My number 10 is Bloody Hammers with The Summoning, which...
Wow!
Yeah, so we talked about them, I think it was last week, was it? With our top goth albums.
And sidebar, that was actually our soundtrack to yesterday's birthday shenanigans, your Bloody Hammers playlist.
It was. Kind of like we talked about before, they're a band that, depending on what album you pick, they cover a lot of ground. Some of it's a little bit more punk, some of it's a little bit more just straight up rock. It just kind of depends. This album in particular definitely has kind of that gothy, like rock sound to it. Very, very much horror based, but has very intense lyrics too. I mean, almost like that kind of horror, dark love kind of thing going on. I just love that about them. I love their sound. I love his voice. Like, they're amazing.
I would venture to guess your favorite song is off of that album as well, too, from Bloody Hammers, which is...
Yes, it's from Beyond the Grave. It's definitely my favorite song from them, and it's just amazing, so check it out.
Yeah, that is one of my favorites from the band as well, too, and much like I mentioned ad nauseum yesterday and in the past, and I'll do it again right here, right now, Right here, right now. You need to check out the earlier Bloody Hammers albums.
I know.
And you'll hear more of the real goth sound, the
Yeah.
80s goth, the
Yes.
synthesizer stuff, more the typo kind of feel. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy that. But that said, The Summoning might be their best album, depending
Yeah.
on what you're looking for.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
that one's probably the most metal album.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you mentioned, that there's some more punk ones, there's more goth ones. All of that has that horror feel behind it. Some of that has that macabre love feel behind it, and you can really take the lyrics and it's like it's really dark, evil, love, horror. But it
Yes.
also feels like it could translate into real life as well, which I appreciate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you've never checked out Bloody Hammers, absolutely do it.
Or Anders solo stuff as well.
Oh yeah, Anders Manga does some fantastic solo goth music, which is more along the lines of the earlier Bloody Hammers albums. So
Yeah.
if that inspires you to check it out more, you should do that.
Yeah. So what's your number 9?
My number 9 is from every year. I say that this band comes closer and closer to being my favorite band of all time. While not every album is a hit for me, the albums that are a hit, which, with 16 albums now,
Yes.
is quite the feat that they have so many great bangers, as the kids say nowadays. Or at least they used to.
Yes.
Bops, or what?
Slaps.
Yes, I'm sure we're a few years behind. But this is the particular album that got me into this band. I still remember going to a closing down FYE in Maplewood, Minnesota, where they had all of their CDs 80% off.
Oh.
So I got a lot of great albums here from like Evergrey and Atheist, and I think I got like 15 albums that. But this one is the one that was the biggest impact for me. It is the band King's X with their very underrated album Ogre Tones. Well, a lot of people love the early albums. They love Dogman, the newest material, obviously. This is one of those where it was love at first sight, or first listen for me.
Yes.
It's pretty much their comeback album, as their last few albums before this one, people weren't really into, but they kind of changed things up on here. There's a couple re-recordings on this album, like their biggest song, Goldilocks. They actually re-recorded this song down-tuned to match Doug's vocals nowadays, which is still impeccable, especially for 2005 when this came out, and it still is nowadays. But sometimes you have to do that just with an age, and considering how old he is, and he does not look like that at all. But I know every single lyric to every single song on this album. I sing it when I'm alone and you're not around. I sing everything on here. I even tried in my cover band to do like a song or two off here to try to sing, because they were trying to get me to sing.
Yeah.
And I had a list of songs that I wanted to do, and all of them were denied.
Aw.
But I would have loved to have done something on here, but I love every single song on here. It is one of their most underrated albums, and it's cool hearing a different take on Goldilocks. And yeah, this album is just so near and dear to me. And yeah, probably by the time that I'm 40, if not sooner, King's X will be my favorite band of all time.
Totally understandable. They are a great band. When we saw them live, they were absolutely amazing, and every time you play them, I enjoy them. They're a band that, again, like, I'll go to once in a while for a few select songs that I really, really, really love from them, but they're another band that I haven't dug as deep into as I should.
Yeah, I know Goldilocks is probably your favorite.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And I know there's other ones like Summerlands, which I think is up your alley.
Yeah.
And the new album wasn't particularly your thing, I noticed.
I mean, it wasn't bad, but it just it didn't grab me as much.
It's not their catchiest, it's not their most memorable.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to have another King's X album. That's just where I am at this point.
Totally.
It's like that band where it's like, if they put out anything, I'm still going to enjoy it, even if it's not their story.
Absolutely.
But yes, if you've never checked out King's X, do so. And if you want something on the heavier side, but still just as catchy, but very underrated, check out Ogre. Now, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is Mirath with Legacy.
Oh, yes.
So if you're unfamiliar...
First of all, you're welcome.
Yes, yes, this is one that you turned me on to. So if you're not familiar with them, they're this amazing blend of symphonic, kind of proggy power, and kind of mixed in with these Middle Eastern elements. Just such a unique sound to them. The vocals are amazing. They're impeccable. They're another band where I feel classier listening to them.
That's a great way to put it.
It is.
And unfortunately, they're playing Prog Power
Yeah.
this year, and we're not going to be there.
I know. We missed my Prog Power another year as well, but I'm hoping sometime they'll actually do a tour around the States. But
There was rumors that they were going to be opening for Camelot, but unfortunately, that did not be.
Yeah.
So, what makes this album stand out more than the others to you?
So this was the first album I heard from them, so it does have that near and dear factor to me. But overall, like there's other albums where I enjoy the entire album, but they're like more they're strong songs that I like more than others on other albums. Whereas this album, I love the entire thing front to back, and it's so good.
Yeah, I believe, since you mentioned it was the first one that you checked out, this was the album that I showed you, and I'm really glad that you became attached to it, because Mirath is such an underrated band unless you're really into that style.
Yes.
And I wish that they would grow bigger, and in some respects they have.
Yes.
But I still want them to be able to do like a full tour and get the full headlining set that they deserve over here in North America.
For sure. And they are Beyond the Eyes, do let me do.
Oh yes, part of the crushes that I will never ever live up to.
So what's your number 8?
My number 8 is probably the most jaw-dropping drop of the whole list. Anyone who has known me for long enough knows that this was my favorite album of all time for so many years. But over recent times, it has actually dropped down. Not because I feel differently about it, but it's more of other albums have just become more near and dear to me over the years. But it is from my former favorite band of all time. And before you ask, I really don't have a favorite band of all time anymore, because I have different moods. That's just the way I am.
Yeah.
But it is the band Dream Theater with their, in my opinion, magnum opus, Images and Words. Now, when we first met, this was the only Dream Theater album that you had.
Well, no, the only one I owned was their greatest hit, plus was 23 other great songs.
No, I thought you had Images and Words too. We listened to it in the car.
No, maybe I have it in my MP3s.
Okay, well, maybe that was one of my other sides. Side lanes.
Yeah, right.
All right, but, well, anyways, this was the soundtrack to my trip to New York City when I was in high school. My high school band, no, not a rock band, but like actually through the high school band, orchestra, whatever you want to call it. We actually played on the USS Intrepid, and I don't know how we did that, but got to explore Manhattan. We got to see a couple Broadway shows, got to see Phantom of the Opera, which I fell asleep halfway through it because we were on an 18-hour bus ride nonstop, except for pee breaks and eating. Then I believe we also saw Wicked, if I remember it right. For some reason I thought it was The Lion King, but I'm pretty sure it was Wicked.
Yeah.
But
Easy to confuse.
yes, of course, lions and witches, of course. Oh my. But before we got into New York, one of the buses, we had 2 buses, one of them broke down, and we were stuck at a New Jersey mall. And of course, FYE, back when that was still a prominent thing, I went in there and I wanted to get one album. And I heard Dream Theater's Train of Thought. That was a huge impact on me before the trip to New York. And I wanted to get another Dream Theater album. And what better than the New York, New Jersey area to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And I was torn between this album, which I knew was their biggest album, and the double album 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. I went with Images and Words, and I'm so glad that I did, because it just felt like the perfect soundtrack to New York City. Hearing songs like Another Day at Night on a bus going through Manhattan was just like a magical moment for me. Same with Metropolis. Every song on here is just near and dear to me, and even though it's dropped down in ranks now at number 8, I still have so much love and attachment for this album. It got me more into prog metal, and I probably became much more of a prog nerd. And I know for a great time it's like, well, if you can't do stuff in odd time signatures, you're not a good band. I did have a little bit of that phase going on, but yeah, this is just one of those albums. Hold Me Under and all the other songs that are attached. It was just a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I like Dream Theater. This is probably my second favorite album. My favorite is The Astonishing, of course. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. But
if I had that slide whistle sound effect,
But no, I like Dream Theater. Good choice.
Oh, well, thank you. Now, what is your number 8?
So my number 8 is going back to my high school days. It's a little bit of a glimpse into my youth, but a band that has stuck with me through the years, and it is Stabbing Westward with Wither, Blister, Burn, and Peel.
What, the concept album? Wow. All right.
Yeah, this has been my favorite album since I first got into them. If you don't not familiar with them, it's industrial, but it has that kind of dark intensity about it. It's definitely very deep, kind of deep lyrics, we'll just say. Very intense, very kind of I'm a teenage psychopath kind of thing. But I love them. I absolutely love them. They're so good, and
Yeah, it has the biggest songs from the band on there, obviously. It's a concept album about the crumbling of a relationship and moving past it,
Yes.
which, especially for the 90s, especially for the industrial kind of gothic feel that they were accomplishing, what a great topic to cover as well.
Yes.
And one of the best experiences, especially for you, was getting to not only see them, but meeting them as well, and
Yes.
getting to take a picture with them and getting passes
Absolutely.
and all that stuff. How was that for you, for a band that you never thought you would see live?
Yeah, oh, it's amazing, and I love that they're actually now like out playing shows still again. They put out a new album, was it last year or the year before? They're out there doing their thing again, but it was amazing meeting them. Christopher is just a dreamboat. They're all way shorter than I thought they were going to be, so I felt like a tower standing next to them. But but it was a dream come true, because as a teenager who was obsessed with them, like I never thought I would get to meet them.
Yes, and we will be starting the cover band Jabbing Eastward at some point in the future.
Well, of course, of course.
But no, I thoroughly enjoy that album as well too. I don't always gravitate towards it, but whenever I do hear it, it does bring back a lot of fond memories.
Yeah, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is my hero and yours, Mr. Heavy Devi, Devin Townsend. With his first official solo album, unless you count Punky Brewster, cooked on phonics, it is Ocean Machine Biomech, which has just been shortened down to Ocean Machine and is been titled down to Devin Townsend, because the original plan was to name the band Ocean Machine or Biomech, depending on the story, and it was going to be attached that way, but now it's just Devin Townsend, Ocean Machine. This album is so filled with pop, prog, metal, a little bit of electronica as well too, with the Death of Music, which it just has one little electronic beat that goes for 12 minutes and it just grows in intensity. The song Life should have been a top 40 rock radio hit. When you listen to it, it just sounds like a song that should have been on the radio. One of my favorite riffs of all time from the song Bastard is on this album. Just everything about this is great. And of course, the unexpected death metal scream at the end of the album. A little bit of a cheat because you don't see it coming, especially when there's no screams on this album whatsoever. And you just all of a sudden hear this death metal roar. It can scare people when you're not expecting it, especially if you're not into the death metal stuff. But between the lyrical content, the musical soundscapes that goes on here, the riffs, and of course just Devin Townsend being Devin Townsend, making an album to be the opposite of Strappy Young Lad, which is something that I loved so much about him when he was doing all of these things. Was he was writing a Strappy Young Lad album and he was also writing a solo album at the same time, so it was that yin-yang feel. Like the more aggressive side he would focus on strapping, and the more melodic side he would focus on his solo material. And with this one, he was writing City during that time, which I know is your personal favorite Devin Townsend album.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is the yang to City's yin. And I know it's shocking, but I love Devin Townsend's solo work more than Strappy Young Lad, and I love Strappy Young Lad. And I know you feel the exact opposite.
Yeah. I mean, I like some Devin, but I'm definitely more of a Strappy Young Lad band.
Do you recognize any of the songs off Ocean Machine at all?
Yeah, not that I can remember offhand.
That's what I thought. Anyways, your number 7.
My number 7 is Within Temptation, The Heart of Everything.
Ooh.
Yes, so I love Within Temptation. Sharon is one of my favorite female vocalists. Yeah, this band or this album in particular, I mean, if you're not familiar with them first, they're just kind of this great mix of symphonic with very just beautiful, almost kind of ethereal vocals over it.
Used to be.
Well, okay. They've mixed in some other elements in recent albums, and that's okay. I mean, they're still symphonic and amazing and still doing their thing. But this album, like, it covers a lot of really kind of heart-wrenching topics, and it just hits me really deeply. So that's a big part of this album that I love, and it's just from front to back, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is a great album. It's probably their most devastating album that they've put out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's not my favorite album, just because of the fact it doesn't have Exhibit on this album.
Well, of course.
But no, it's probably second or third for me.
Yeah.
But it is a fantastic album, and Sharon just shines through the dark lights on this one.
Absolutely. And right after this, they did their live album, The Black Symphony. One of my favorite live albums, too. That is one to check out for sure.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
Look at number 6.
My number 6 is, wouldn't you guess it, a concept album. A 40-minute concept album from one of my biggest heroes in life, Dan Swano. And it is, of course, the legendary progressive death metal band Edge of Sanity with Crimson. They also, the final Edge of Sanity album is Crimson 2, which is the sequel to Crimson, but Crimson has a very devastating story as well too with its concept. Dan Swano actually doesn't do any screams on this album. It is actually Michael Akerfeld of Opeth doing the screams on this album. So if you want to hear Dan Swano do his majestic, rugged, clean vocals with Michael Akerfeld's death growls, this is the album to check out. The music is just fantastic. I love how it all comes together. It hits different kinds of folk elements as well, but it's very rich and deep into the progressive death metal sound that a lot of people think Opeth started with, that they were the first band to do this, while Edge of Sanity really was the first one. And Opeth took a lot of ideas from that and potentially got more success out of it from doing that, but over the years, Edge of Sanity means a lot more to me than Opeth. But yeah, this is my favorite Edge of Sanity album and one of my favorite concept albums, but not the only concept album you'll be seeing on this list.
Spoiler alert. No, I adore Dan Swano. He is a rugged, beautiful man. His voice is amazing. Edge of Sanity is another band that I haven't dived much into, but I've enjoyed everything that you've played for me from them. So.
But your favorite Eternal Tears of Sorrow song is actually an Edge of Sanity song.
That's not my favorite song from them.
I know, I was just making a joke. But Black Tears, which you thought was an Eternal Tears of Sorrow song.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a cover.
Yeah, is actually Edge of Sanity, which is off the album Purgatory Afterglow.
Yes.
Which is either second or third for me in the ranking for Edge of Sanity. But yeah, there's some of it you do know.
Yes, yeah.
And hopefully at some point you'll check that out, along with more Nightingale.
Yes.
Now, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is Avantasia Ghost Lights.
Oh, yeah, that was a really, this was a hard one for me not to put in my top 10, not to spoil anything, but this was one of them that unfortunately did have to get cut.
Well, regardless, I know we talked about this one in previous lists, but it's such a good mix of power, but almost a little proggy too in some ways, and a lot of other kind of genres are brought into depending on the song, but it just tells an amazing story throughout. It's such a good mix of different vocalists, just strong vocals, strong production, strong music throughout. It's amazing.
And of course, your favorite song off of there, which I never would have expected since it is over 10 minutes long, which I didn't think that was... 12
minutes.
Yes, well, still over 10.
Yes.
But Let the Storm Descend Upon You.
Yes.
Which, again, like, knowing you and how you feel about prog for the most part, like, one of your favorite songs from Avantasia is an epic.
I mean, I never said anything bad about long songs. I just, if it's proggy wankery, then yeah.
Oh, we are so getting into this. Another What's Your Problem? But yes, one of my favorite power metal albums of all time, as we talked about the first time that we did these top 10 albums lists, this album is so near and dear to me. It's the darkest Avantasia album. It's arguably the heaviest Avantasia album, and every single song just rules.
And it has Toby and Yorn doing a ballad together.
With the song Lucifer.
Yes.
Which, how have you described it, like when you vision it in your head?
It's like a love story. I just envision them laying on like a bearskin rug in front of a fire, but then when it gets intense and like Toby has to get on his horse to go save the day of some sorts.
And then Yorn is like getting his trying to reach his revenge for Toby leaving him.
Oh, it's just amazing.
If you want to hear more Avantasia fan fiction, stay tuned.
I'll be starting the page shortly here.
Oh, that's some great stuff.
So what's your number 5?
My number 5, as we enter the top half of this list,
Ooh.
is my favorite death metal album of all time from the legendary Chuck Schuldiner. It is Death with Leprosy. Now, a lot of people have said that Scream Bloody Gore is a better album, and I can see it in some aspects, but I know a lot of people say that because it is technically considered one of the first 2 death metal albums, along with Possessed and Seven Churches. Arguably, one of them is the first death metal album, depending on who you ask. To me, this feels like the more sophisticated death metal album. The production is so much better. The topics are so much more gruesome and evil on this album, even though the first album is filled with like horror things. I mean, the song Evil Dead is on Scream Bloody Gore, which of course is off of the series Evil Dead, but yeah, this one just feels like the more sophisticated death metal side before they started getting into more technical and proggy territories. But yeah, everything that I love about like straight ahead old school death metal is on this very short but sweet album.
Yeah, like number 1, Chuck had the most beautiful hair ever. But besides that,
All I can be is myself.
I know, me too. If I had to listen to straight up death metal, Death would be the band I'd pick. Just as I've gotten older, I've moved more and more away from that and more towards the melodic side. And not that there aren't any melodic moments with it, but I just don't gravitate towards that so much anymore. But they're a great band. We're a great band.
Well, that's the thing that I love about Leprosy is like where Scream Bloody Gore is just like the straight ahead death metal sound.
Yeah.
There is a lot more melodies and harmonies on Leprosy. But yeah, surprisingly, the only pure death metal album on this list. And for you, I know that there is like no pure death metal on your list. In fact, when we went over all 350 albums, I don't think there was one pure death metal album on the entire thing.
Probably not.
And I think we gotta blame Maryland Death Fest 2015 for ruining your love of death metal.
No. Maybe.
But what is your number 5?
My number 5 is Children of Bodom with Follow the Reaper.
Follow the Reaper.
Yes, I absolutely love Children of Bodom. I'm still completely broken that he's no longer with us. Alexi was amazing. Follow the Reaper has always been my favorite album from them, though. I do love Hatebreeder too. That's a close second, but Follow the Reaper just always, I mean, like Follow the Reaper had that great mix of like the keys. They're very, very prominent, mixed with the guitar and kind of dueling back and forth, and I absolutely love that era of Children of Bodom. Alexi obviously was an amazing guitarist. His vocals were just so good for this type of music, and Yanni's just such an amazing keyboardist too. I love him in this, but I also love him with his side project Warman as well. But it's just such a great mix of the kind of almost classical kind of sound with the melody, but then the kind of the dark lyrics and kind of almost horror based sometimes lyric, and it's just great.
Yeah, and they had such a magnificent run. Basically everything up to Are You Dead Yet is pretty much like essential melodeath listening. Of course, the first couple albums are much more focused on power metal more than anything else, and then they started developing more into the melodic death metal side. And least we forget Alexi's penned lyrics for the Impaled Nazarene song Zero Tolerance, which I'll show you after we're done with this. Children of Bodom is just like one of those classic Finnish melodeath bands, and there's a reason why Alexi is so heralded. Yanni less so, but definitely deserving of all the praise that he gets no matter what he's a part of. Yeah, like probably not my favorites of the Finnish melodeath bands, but a band that deserves all the love and praise that they ever got.
Definitely. What's your number 5?
Well, my number 5 was Death with Leprosy.
Oh, whoops.
But number 4 is probably the album that took the biggest jump up. And I think it's happened over time because the vocalist of this band is one of my favorite vocalists of all time. Every single song off of this album, lyrically, musically, production-wise, is just what I love about music. And if I could be in a tribute/rip-off band that sounded like this band, I would be in heaven. It is the band Nevermore with obviously their biggest album, Dead Heart in a Dead World. There is the argument for the Obsidian Conspiracy Conspiracy possibly being my favorite Nevermore album, but Dead Heart in a Dead World is obviously the best pick for this. It's the obvious choice, but there's a reason why it's the obvious choice, because it really is their best album. Warrell Dane absolutely shines on this album. Jeff Loomis, of course, started doing the down-tuned 7 guitars off of this album, so they really got that patented Nevermore sound. They sounded less like Sanctuary and more like Nevermore on this album, and continued on through the rest of their lifespan. And yeah, whether it's Believe in Nothing, whether it's the title track, Inside Four Walls, The Heart Collector, there is no bad song off of this album. Every single song is just fantastic from start to finish. I am so happy I got to see them once on their final US tour, and just seeing Warrell Dane on Halloween dressed up as a pirate with his fake gold teeth was just hilarious.
Yeah, I love Nevermore too. This is also my favorite album from them. They're, like you said, there's no zingers on this bunch. Like it's all good. Didn't make my top 10, but it's amazing. And Warrell was just, we didn't deserve him.
We really didn't. And of course he had his demons, but you know, who doesn't? I
Exactly.
mean, everyone has demons, whether they admit it or not. And
For sure.
some people just can't handle them as well as others. And of course that helped lead to the demise of Nevermore, but at least we still have the music.
Exactly.
And that's what you gotta appreciate. Now, Metal Faerie, number 4.
My number 4 is Flesh God Apocalypse with Veleno.
Wow.
Yes. So, as we've talked about in previous episodes, you turned me on to them, and
You're welcome.
you're welcome. And they have quickly risen to be one of my favorite bands. And this album, I mean, all their albums are absolutely amazing. There is no bad album from Flesh God. I can talk. But this one, it's like they were just like, you know what, we're gonna step it up even more this time. Like, because I mean, they're that great mix of symphonic and death metal. And, you know, you've always have had some kind of classical vocals with it too, operatic vocals, but Veronica really like shines on this album, and they even have a ballad on this album, and it's just like they're proving that they can do absolutely no wrong.
And that probably is your favorite song off the album, and maybe even your favorite Flesh God song?
Yes, it is. I mean, I love all their songs, and they have some other really, really amazing ones. Even during the pandemic, they came out with a single "No," which is outside of the ballad. Like, that is probably my second favorite song because it's just that good.
And at least we forget their cover of Eiffel 65's Blue.
Yes, that is amazing as well. But yeah, I mean, they just keep turning it up over and over again. And I just hope that Francesco is healing up and they are, you know, able to get another album out there.
Well, I think he has pretty much healed up, as they have been touring.
Good.
They came here earlier this year. Unfortunately, we didn't feel right about going.
Yeah.
Not because of anyone on the tour or anything like that,
No.
but we're big fraidy cats when it comes to everything that came with the pandemic and stuff. And we still don't always feel comfortable about like going out and doing stuff.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I'm glad to see that Francesco is back out there singing, playing, doing all the stuff, because you know, after doing freehand rock climbing and nearly falling to your death,
oof.
What a tragic way that would have been. But I'm so curious to see what the next album is going to sound like after a near-death experience like that.
Absolutely. So, what's your number 3?
My number 3, well, actually, number 3 and number 2 are my biggest tear-jerking albums.
Oh man, I know what they are.
Yes, you do. It was tough because these particular 2 albums mean so near and dear to me, but I had to put them in the order that meant so much to me. But I had to go with Anathema at number 3 with Weather Systems. The first half of the album deals with heartbreak and loss of family and death, and the second half of the album deals with your own passing and what happens on the other side, if there is another side. Every single song is just filled with this great progressive yet symphonic orchestral feel behind it that, with the violins and the orchestration, just really grabs you by the heartstrings. And if you let it, you will cry. If you don't, you don't have a soul. Like, if you really give it a chance and really just indulge yourself with it. It's some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard in progressive music. Just everything that Anathema did always had some fantastic stuff, but nothing ever hit the emotion of this album because it's something that every single person experiences in some form. Just like the band I'm going to be talking about at number 2, the experiences of love and death.
Yeah. For me, Anathema they're not my cup of tea, but for a band that's not my cup of tea, they're the most emotionally pulling band that exists. Because even though they're not my thing, every time you play them, I can appreciate them because of how much they mean to you. And every time you play them, I end up crying. So, in that way, I appreciate them.
I understand, and one day I will break you, just like in Rocky IV. I will break you, but I will get you potentially into Anathema at some point. That is a goal. Hey,
We'll see.
All right, that's enough of that. Your number 3.
My number 3 is Elven King with The Winter Wake.
I'm amazed to see it that high up.
Well, I mean, they're one of my favorite bands.
I know, but still.
Yeah, I absolutely love Elven King. If you're not familiar with them, they're kind of a mix of power metal and folk metal, depending on which album you pick. But their earlier albums, The Winter Wake being one of their earlier albums, is way more on the folky side than more recent stuff. Although they have kind of swung around a little bit more to incorporate folk again. But it just reminds me of being a fairy, like hopping around in the forest, and I absolutely love that feeling. And
it's almost like that reminds me of a name I've heard before, like the Metal Faerie.
What? Yeah, maybe I'm inspired by them a little bit. But Domna, the vocalist, I absolutely love him and his style. He also has another project that we'll be talking about a little bit later. And yeah, I just love this album. It's amazing.
Yeah, it probably is the best Elven King album. I mean, there's arguments for many of their other albums as well, too, but...
Yeah, Heathen Reel is a close second for me, but this is fave.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure this was the first Elven King album I ever heard.
Yeah.
Heard it, like, right around the time that I graduated, I believe, and it was when I was living back at home, I discovered Elven King, and I believe it was this album, and I think it was the album that got me into the band, so, it's like there's always going to be that kind of attachment.
Yeah.
Their newest album is like one of their heaviest things that it's almost near death metal at times, which I was not really expecting.
Yeah, I'm enjoying their album this year, so definitely check that one out too.
Yeah, but Elven King sadly is also playing Prog Power this year, which I know this would have been the year for you to go with Mirath and Elven King, and last year had they not dropped out and Turtle Tears of Sorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we'll get into that another time.
All right.
What's your number 2?
Well, in speaking of loss and death and things that don't mean much in life anymore, and
we all know where this is going.
Yes. There was the argument of making this my favorite album, and it's very possible that in time it will be my favorite album of all time. It's one of the few albums that I have on vinyl, which I thankfully got during Christmas last year. Mm-hmm. It is, of course, the final album of David Gold. It is Woods of Ypres with Woods 5, Grey Skies, and Electric Light. Every song being about death or loss. Woods 4 was all about heartbreak in some way, shape, or form. Woods 5 is all about the death of something. Whether it's faith, whether it's relationships, whether it's your own being, and everything in between. This album, I got the promo for a week and a half after David Gold died.
Ugh.
And listening to it just had that great haunting feel behind it, knowing all of that. And of course, it was not a suicide. It was a tragic car accident during the holiday season. But when you listen to the lyrics, it really feels like someone that's terminal, that is just lamenting the life that they had to live.
Yeah.
And that's me. Obviously not terminal, knock on wood, but... just like so many of the things that I feel on this album, I feel. The song Adora Vivos is all about wanting to hear that love and appreciation while you're still alive. Like, I don't want people to, well, also Kiss My Ashes Goodbye is another great example of that, where if you care about me, if you love me, if you want me a part of my life, tell me while I'm still here. Don't wait till after I die.
Yeah.
Because what good is that going to do me when I'm not here? Like, let me know I'm appreciated while I'm still here, and let others know that you appreciate them.
Yeah.
Because that's such an important thing. But, of course, the last 3 songs on this album are the ones that probably have made you cry harder than anything else, with Kiss My Ashes Goodbye, Finality, and Alternate Ending. The last one being the piano-driven one, which probably gets to you the hardest.
Yeah, I mean, Woods is a band that I've quote-unquote come around on. Like, it's hard to say you enjoy a band when all they do is make you cry. So I think that was my kind of hurdle I had to jump over. But I do enjoy them. It's just, it's a hard enjoy, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does, but like I've said to you many times, like I've said other places many times, if music can make you cry...
Oh, sure.
That has such a much more emotional impact on you, and it really means something to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is just like the chord or the piano or whatever the case is. But if something can really hit you like that, you should embrace it, even if it is sad.
Oh, definitely.
And yeah, I know there's sadder albums in the world, probably. I know that there's...
Are there, though?
You know, I'm sure someone could leave a comment saying what's the saddest album they ever heard and see if it's up there as well.
Exactly.
But this album is basically just like, it feels like you're bedridden and you're looking back on your life and all the loss that you've had.
Yeah.
It feels like the last few seconds of your life before you pass. And the ending of Alternate Ending also just feels like you're fading away into the light. And I'm kind of choking up a little bit more as I'm doing this.
It's a little haunting.
It's haunting. Although musically, they are like a Canadian typo negative, I guess is the easiest, but also kind of wrong way to put it. But if you just want an idea of what it is, like if you want typo negative, a little more blackened and Canadian, Woods of Ypres, it might be the band for you. So what is your numero dos?
My number 2 is Sonata Arctica with Reckoning Night. So once upon a time, Sonata used to be my favorite band.
Then some stuff happened.
Then like the 5th or 6th album happened. No, they definitely have changed their style as they've gone on, and, you know, do you, but it's just not my thing anymore. But back in this day, they were very, very power metal. They were very keyboard, guitar driven. Their lyrics were very story-like. I mean, their albums told a story, you know? And in particular with this album, Yanni was still with them at that time, and he's such an amazing guitarist. He's now with Insomnium and Kane's Offering and other projects as well. Henrik was on keyboards at the time, and they kind of dueled with each other a lot with that, which was so neat. This album has my favorite Sonata song, which is My Celine, which was written by Yanni, which is an amazing song. It's about the story of Celine, the goddess of the moon, and Endymion, her lover. So definitely if you're into kind of the
majestic or magical.
Mythology.
Well, yeah, I was looking for the word too. I knew it started with an M.
If you're into mythology, definitely check it out because it's a beautiful story of them. And
we're keeping that in.
Yeah. We own our flaws. But yeah, it was just a great album.
Yeah, this probably isn't my favorite Sonata album, but it is a part of that magical Sonata era where they could do no wrong. And of course, as all good things, that will pass. And it happened for Sonata, unfortunately.
Yes.
But it just makes you appreciate the golden era of Sonata even more. It's a great album with a lot of great songs. And if you want like a really good textbook definition of what power metal can be, Reckoning Night is a perfect example to show that off.
Absolutely. So what's your number 1?
My number 1 is either a complete perfect choice or an absolute cop-out, as well as, well, I'll describe it the way that Prog Power 2015 did it with their little teaser video for the 2016. One band, one set, one song, 60 minutes long.
I know who it is.
It is Green Carnation with Light of Day, Day of Darkness. Now, I consider this to be an album, even though it is just one track, 60 minutes long. Other people just consider it a single. I understand that. And if you want to be that kind of jerk about it, Woods of Ypres is Woods 5 is my favorite album of all time, and this is my favorite single. But if you want to take the semantics out of it, this is my favorite album of all time. It is a heart-wrenching album about the loss of family, loss of a baby that affects a whole life and cycle and everything that goes into it. It has a lot of great black metal elements, like the early day stuff, like you can hear like Bathory riffs throughout this. It goes into a lot of folk metal elements. It goes into prog territory. There's no screams on this album. It is just clean vocals, which I appreciate. The middle section has a 5-minute kind of like voice chant kind of thing that is not going to be for everybody, and knowing some people that I know, they'll turn the song off when it gets to that point, but it's only a few minutes long, and then the second half of the album just becomes grander and grander and grander. The reason I love this song, album, whatever you want to call it, so much is because it kind of shows all the different sides of my personality musically. I love all the different styles of music that's going on there. Alternative, goth, industrial, prog, acoustic, black metal, all these different things all rolled into an hour-long package that just flows together so seamlessly. And I will say, going back into that voice chant part, when we saw them live, they did not do that. They replaced it with a little 5-minute acoustic section, which I thought was probably the better choice to do that. But yeah, you got to see the song live with me. I know it doesn't have the same impact on you, but I was so happy to experience one of my favorite bands of all time playing my favorite song and album of all time. So what do you think of this particular album?
Yeah, so I can't remember if you had played this for me before we went to Prog Power or not, but I know seeing it at Prog Power they were amazing. I mean, and even though it's one song, it almost plays off like it's an entire album, like, of songs. So in that respect, I totally agree. This is an album. I do like their album they did, what was in 2018?
Leaves of Yesteryear.
Yeah, that one was, I enjoyed more, but yeah, this is a great album though, so.
Well, I know the band likes that album a lot more, as well as... Yeah. This one has to do with actual personal struggle that happened within the band.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to talk about on here, but, like the death of a young family member and stuff like that. So that's, you don't always want to remember those times. Yeah. But I'm so glad that they even came back and did this album for its anniversary and just being able to show it off. But yeah, that is my favorite album of all time. Now, what is your favorite album potentially of all time?
Yeah, so you've teased them a little bit throughout this list, but my favorite album of all time is Eternal Tears of Sorrow with A Virgin and a Whore.
You don't say.
What? So they are my favorite band. They are. Everything they do is amazing. It's unfortunately been a very long time since they put out an album, but hopefully at some point they'll put out another. But they are just another Finnish melodic death metal band. Obviously my favorite of that type of music. But this album in particular, it's such a good mix of like the heavy guitars with the pretty, like really pretty beautiful keyboards over it. It's a mix of clean and harsh vocals. And it's just very intense. The lyrics are very emotionally driven. I mean, there's a ballad on there as well, so they actually do kind of some of the softer stuff as well, and it just grabs you. It grabs your heart, and it just rugs it all over the place.
And that's exactly how I feel about Woods of Ypres.
Yeah.
But it's just done in a melodic side rather than the gothic side that Woods does. But yeah, that every single Eternal Tears of Sorrow album is fantastic.
Yes.
Whether they focus a little more on keys, whether they focus more on orchestration, more gothic, more melodeath, every album has like a little different flavoring to it, which I appreciate. So you don't always necessarily know what you're going to get, but they do maintain that core sound about them.
Yeah.
Sometimes more clean vocals, sometimes more screams and growls. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
No.
But I know how much this band means to you. It would be amazing to see them live one day.
Yes.
But yeah, a fantastic choice for number one.
Thank you.
And that is our collective top 10 albums of all time. If you're checking this out on YouTube, let us know your top 10 albums of all time. Yeah, check it out on social media. Let the comments go through there. Let's talk about favorite albums of all time and see how drastically different our albums are to yours.
And these will be up on Spotify if you want to check them out.
Yes, we will be doing our standard one song per album list. And of course, Green Incarnation, I'm playing the whole album. home. But make sure to check out the Spotify link in the description below to check out this list, and hey, maybe you'll check out a new favorite band or two. But now that we got all of that music covered, and of course, at the end of the show, we'll be talking more music, it is time to go into a bit of a direction.
Let's get into some wrestling content.
And boy, what content we have.
Exactly. So, got a few news items, first of all. So, first up, formerly known as Sunny back in the day, Tammy Lynn Sitch is facing up to, 25 years in prison? Earlier this year, she got into an accident after, she was intoxicated at the time, and caused, unfortunately, one person to pass away from it.
Vehicular manslaughter.
Right? So, he is now facing some time in jail, so we'll see how that goes, but
yeah, unfortunately, if she does go to prison, her OnlyFans will probably play.
Yes.
Because potentially by the time that she gets out, if she lives long enough to get out of prison, OnlyFans might not even be a thing anymore.
That is true.
Oh, at one point in time, she was my wrestling crush. And then when I seen the picture of her in jail...
Oof.
Behold the ravages of age.
It's not so sunny anymore.
No, there's some dark clouds going on in the world of Tammy Lynn Sitch.
Outside of that, there's also some news with FDR. One half of FDR.
Dax Harwood.
Yes.
Or no, Cash Wheeler.
Yes, Cash Wheeler. I can't remember what he was charged exactly.
Well, let's put it this way. He was in driving, and all of a sudden he started getting some road rage, and he took out a firearm and was threatening to shoot a person that he was on the road with.
Oh boy.
And he's got a potentially up to 5 years in prison.
Yeah, he is saying he is not guilty at this point.
Which, we talked about this before. It's so strange where if you plead guilty to begin with, you can get a lesser charge.
Yeah.
But if you plead innocent, you could get taxed on for
yes.
more charges. And
makes total sense.
Yeah. But, that could potentially screw up everything with All In. Right now, they're saying everything's okay, but you just never know what's going to happen.
Yes.
It could be the demise of FTR as well.
Right.
Yeah, that it's just so weird seeing like all of the court hearings. It's shouldn't be shocking, but it is shocking at the same time.
Yeah. I think we're so used to back in the day, things not happening then until they get way older, and then we find out how terrible they are.
Yes. I don't want to know they're terrible now. Let me enjoy them now.
Exactly.
Wait until they're done, and then I can just remember the good memories.
Exactly. So moving on from the news, this past Wednesday on AEW, because that is really the only one we're watching right now, there was this chainsaw match.
No. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match.
My apologies. What were your thoughts?
Well, for anyone not familiar, there is a brand new game out now known as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, anything about horror is obviously based on Leatherface. And if you've ever played these style of games, it's based off of Friday the 13th, Dead by Daylight, and Evil Dead is all about. It's the same kind of thing, but with Leatherface. So they decided to have a promotional gimmick match that was somewhat inspired by Texas Chainsaw Massacre, involving Jeff Jarrett. That's JEFFRETT Jeff Jarrett, facing Jeff Hardy, who has also had many of court issues as well. And of course, the greatest match of all time, Jeff Hardy versus Sting at Victory Road 2009. But the least we talk about that, the better.
Yeah.
But this might have been one of the worst matches I've ever seen in my entire life. It wasn't even a match. It was just like a brawl with all of Jeff Jarrett's team and the Hardy Boys team.
Yes.
And they had all these different stupid fake gimmicks like the medieval maces and nunchucks and chairs and tables, a bucket of fake blood. Karen Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett's real life wife, who she left Kurt Angle for, and constantly screaming, "He's gonna die! We're gonna die! We're gonna die!" Like they were trying to make this a real horror aspect.
Yes.
And then they eventually got into the ring, which was filled with tables and chairs and stuff like that. Now, no real blood-inducing things because neither of them want to bleed. But then, one of the worst moments since RoboCop in 1990, or when Chucky came out in the late 90s with WCW, I believe it was for Bride of Chucky or Seed of Chucky. I forgot which one it was. Leatherface came out. The skinniest, shortest version of Leatherface that you've ever seen, holding a fake chainsaw that would not work.
Yes.
With fake sound effects going through the arena of a chainsaw, chasing Karen Jarrett out into the entranceway where she happily just walked instead of ran to sell the whole thing.
Yes.
in one of the worst displays of horror in wrestling.
It was a fumbling mess. It was a fumbling mess. Like the entire match, like nobody knew like what they were doing, when they were to do it. They were all just kind of standing in the way of each other. Like they were doing weird like actions in the camera. It was just,
Satnam Singh dressed up in overalls, like you're thinking like he was like Leatherface for some reason.
No.
Now, as a Leatherface fan in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, how do you feel about their representation of Leatherface in this match?
I mean, I guess I don't know what he looks like in the game, so maybe they're going for that, but it is not the Leatherface I am used to.
Just so short, so skinny.
Yes.
Barely able to hold on to a fake chainsaw.
Yes.
I imagine it's how a lot of people feel when they first saw Broken Matt Hardy when they did one of the final deletion match, where it's just like it went completely over their heads and people were saying, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And maybe in time people will think that this was actually a great classic messed up match, but at the time I'm just flabbergasted at it. But I will say one positive that came with that and the whole night and what they did with Collision and all the YouTube revenue that they're doing due to all of the fires that are happening over in Hawaii. All the proceeds and money that they've made from all of these shows is going to charities to help Hawaii.
Yeah.
So,
which is amazing.
And they actually paid 6 figures for the rights to use the Texas Chainsaw Massacre match. So they spent over 6 figures to be able to help out Hawaii. So if nothing else, at least it went to a good.
So continuing down the wrestling well.
Well, what about the rest of Dynamite?
I don't really remember a whole lot of it, honestly, so that kind of stays in line with what had been previous weeks.
That is kind of the points, isn't it?
Yeah. But continuing with it, in exactly 1 week, All In is occurring. So let's go through some predictions for that.
Yes, the first ever AEW show in Europe happening at Wembley Stadium.
Yes.
It's actually going to be happening starting with 0 hour, taking place at 11 a.m. for us in the Central Time Zone. If you're listening in the Eastern Time Zone, all your stuff starts at noon.
Yes.
And we're trying to figure out how we're going to be doing this next week. Are we going to be making the show before all of it? Are we going to wait till after? Are we going to wait till the media scrum is done, which can sometimes be the best part of the whole night?
It is the highlight.
Yeah, so we'll be figuring out how we're going to do that. But we want to show off what we have been doing ever since we started watching wrestling together.
Yes.
We love making predictions.
Yeah.
We have our own insights into things that we want to see, not necessarily things that will actually happen, but we come up with our own storylines sometimes of what could happen, things that we just see happen. And for this particular case, I'm not sure if all the matches are announced yet, because the thing AEW loves to do now is like the surprise matches like a day or two before the pay-per-view happens. So this is not an official complete list, but we do have some matches that we're able to talk about and hopefully give some insights into the way both of us think about how wrestling should go.
Yeah, there's been 9 matches announced so far, so we'll go through these. So first up on the 0 hour, we have Aussie Open versus Adam Cole and MJF.
Yes, and this is an oddly strange one, as 2 members of this match will be in the main event.
Yes.
I feel, well, who's going to be predicting?
You can go first.
Me first? Okay. I feel like Aussie Open is going to win this one.
Okay.
Because I feel like the breakdown of MJF and Adam Cole is going to happen during this match, and it's going to turn into a blood feud for the main event.
Okay.
That's my guess.
I am going with Adam Cole and MJF. I will get more into that once we get to the main event.
That is very interesting, and you can already see how our minds think differently.
Yes. Up next, we have Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay.
A match I don't want to see. Now, I love Will Ospreay.
Yes.
Will Ospreay is one of the best wrestlers out there today.
Yes.
But the vodka-filled husband of a woman who appeared in January 6th, 2020, not biggest fan of. And of course, the band Fozzy. But I feel like because it's in his home country, I feel like Ospreay is going to win this. I don't feel like Jericho has a lot to prove. And I also feel like a part of what happened with the events of Dynamite this past with Don Callis and his crew beating up Chris Jericho for Chris Jericho officially joining them because of shenanigans, I think they're going to play a role and Will Ospreay is going to win inadvertently.
I absolutely agree. I believe that Jericho is going to come very close to winning, but Don Callis is going to get involved and he is going to prevent that happening.
And Don Callis is a wrestling treasure.
Yes, he is one of the best things in wrestling. Up next, we have Golden Elite, which is Kenny Omega, Hangman, and Oki versus Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Takashita.
Yeah, this is another match I really don't want to see this because I hate Bullet Club Gold.
Yeah.
I love Bullet Club.
Yeah.
Bullet Club is potentially the greatest faction
Yes.
that has ever been in wrestling. The bastardized this AEW version of Bullet Club with Jay White, who was an amazing leader of Bullet Club, with Juice Robinson and the Guns is a travesty.
Yes, it is.
It's an absolute travesty.
It is.
And for that reason, I pray to the god of skinny punks that the Golden Elite will be the winners of this. Kenny was supposed to have a one-on-one match that unfortunately did not come to be. It was originally supposed to be Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson, but now it's turned into a trios match, and I just want and I want Kota to finally sign with AEW.
Yes, I do as well. I am also gonna go the Golden Elite. Like, I just feel like Jay White and Juice Robinson, even though they're like supposed to be some great things coming in from New Japan and stuff, like, I feel like Tony is just kind of misusing them so much.
And you can say that with so many other talents.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't feel like this match gonna be any different though.
It feels like a job.
Yeah. Up next, we have the Stadium Stampede, which is Eddie Kingston, the Best Friends, Orange Cassidy, and Lucha Brothers versus Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, Claudio, and Three to be determined.
I feel like it's going to be the other members of the Embassy.
Okay.
Which of course is Will Ospreay's in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them there, so that makes all the sense in the world to me.
That would make sense.
Of course, we always do those kind of predictions at the end for that kind of stuff, but I'm just throwing it in for this one.
Yeah.
I think for that reason, and because the Best Friends are in the match, I feel like the Blackpool Combat Club is going to win. Because Best Friends never win, actually. And if they do, it's very insignificant matches. And if they're doing like 3 mystery people that are going to be a part of the match, I don't think that they're just going to pick like 3 random UK jobbers. I think they're going to pick people of prominence. And I feel like it's going to be the other 3 members of the MC.
I would agree with this as well. Like, I mean, I just don't see Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, Claudio. I don't see them losing. Like, they're winning everything almost. So, and to your point, the Best Friends don't win. Unfortunately, they don't win. Eddie Kingston's hit or miss too. So poor Chucky T.
And poor Trent, who should be the star of AEW.
He's amazing. Oh, he's so good. But yeah. So I'm gonna agree with you again on this one.
Who do you think? Do you think that the Embassy is going to be the mystery partners?
You make a good point with that. Honestly, I haven't thought a lot about this one. I need to think about this one a little bit more. But you make a very good point.
Right on.
Next up, we have the coffin match between Darby Allin and Sting versus Swerve Strickland and Fox.
Yes, something you don't normally see, a tag team coffin match.
Right?
This is a feud I just hate. I hate this so much.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the Mogul Embassy and everything that they've been doing.
No.
I have nothing against Nick Wayne. I don't know him enough. I mean, he's only wrestled 2 AEW matches, so I can't hate or love him yet. But just like getting Sting involved in this and potentially the last year of him wrestling, doing kinds of things. And he's doing his Joker Sting thing from TNA, which to me just comes off him being the Jim Carrey. And he's got his Crack Engren face paint on.
Yes.
It's very weird to me. But all of that said, Sting's not going to lose in the UK, so it's going to be Sting and Darby Allin.
I'm agreeing with right away on this one too. And it's coffin match, so like,
if there's one thing I know coffin matches are for, it's Sting.
Exactly.
And I also predict that Prince Nana will be one of the first people into a casket.
I'm sure. So up next we have the quote-unquote real world championship with CM Punk versus
Is that
Samoa
really
Joe.
what it's called?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
We don't watch Collision as we thought on the show before.
Yeah. This will be the bathroom break match.
All right, so can you CM Punk versus
Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe. Mm-hmm. Star of Twisted Metal as Sweet Tooth, Samoa Joe.
Yes.
That's who I'd like to see win.
Yeah.
But apparently, CM Punk is running half of AEW now, along with Tony Khan.
Yup.
He's not an official executive vice president or anything like
Might
that.
as well be, though.
But yeah, like, apparently he gets to decide who's going to be on Collision and will kick people out. He'll constantly keep making jabs at the Elite. Mm-hmm. He's basically booking Collision.
Wouldn't let Hangman be on there.
Yeah, and Ryan Nemeth.
Yes.
Who he threatened to beat the crap out of.
So, HR friendly.
Yeah, very HR friendly, and as someone who has dealt with HR in their life, you just love to see that.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, it's gonna be CM Punk because he's running the whole show. Why would he lose?
Exactly. You know, he deemed this title on himself, and why would he take it off himself? Up next, we have the women's championship match with Hikaru Shida, Toni Storm, Saraya, whatever, and Britt Baker.
Oh, the TBS match? Or
AEW Women's Championship.
I thought Statlander had, or no, she has the TBS title.
Yeah.
That's right. My apologies. This one, I really don't know how to I guess I can go different ways about. She'd just won the title. So it would feel very strange to take the title off her that quickly.
Yeah.
But since they're becoming more like WWE, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't either.
Britt Baker is trying to become the biggest babyface in AEW now after being the biggest heel for quite a long time.
Yes.
So they might want to go that route as well because she's always in America where Shida also still wrestles at Stardom.
Yeah.
Saraya, formerly Paige, also the fiance to the singer of Falling in Reverse, is very controversial and trying to be the biggest heel of W, along with her partner in crime, Storm, who just lost the title. So any of them could have a reason to win the title. But just for the interest of hoping that they don't ruin things, I'm just going to go Shida.
I am going to go Saraya. She's the only one of the group who hasn't had the title star. And with it being in England, I mean, it just makes sense. It does.
It does. Unfortunately, it does.
Oh, moving onward, we have the tag team championship with FDR versus the Young Bucks.
If this match happens.
Yes. As of right now, it's all on, but...
Yeah, we're going to pretend like the match is full go, nothing's happening. Cash Wheeler is not in prison. We're just...
Yes.
But I think with all of those reasons, depending on what's going to happen, just to make one short, the Bucks of Youth will regain the titles because I feel like there's some bad things that might be happening down the road in real life.
Yeah. If they were smart, they would have it. It's Tony Khan leading it right now, and, you know, as much as I used to love him, he's not making the best judgments right now, so I'm going with FDR.
You used to have a crush on him. And, of course, who are FDR's best friend?
CM Punk.
So, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Up next, last match is the World Championship with MJF versus Adam.
Now, this kind of feels like where I was going with things for 0 Hour. I think they're trying to make you watch 0 Hour because there's only one match this time. Now, in my head, Adam Cole is going to turn on MJF during that match.
Okay.
Either after they lose or in the match.
Okay.
Because he cares more about the title.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really good storytelling because everyone thinks MJF is eventually going to turn on Adam Cole. That's what you expect because he is the devil. He is one of the biggest heels in AEW. But everyone loves him now. And everyone has that, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? But they're going to do a swerve, Strickland, and Adam Cole is going to become a new heel, and he's going to be with Broderick Strong and the Kingdom, and the Kingdom is going to become one of the bigger factions in AEW. And what better way to start that horrible group with the Kanellisai than by Adam Cole breaking MJF's heart, doing some illegal moves, and becoming the AEW champ, which potentially could lead into a rematch the very next week for All Out due to lazy booking.
It could. So, on my end, I think MJF win. I think that Roderick Strong and team are going to get involved and cost Adam the match because they're so frustrated with him. And then MJF will win and he'll be like, oh, it wasn't me, it was them. You know, and so then they'll still be able to be together as a tag team. But it's the first kind of like iffy situation that's happening between them. Well, not the first, but like a big one. And because I don't think they're done riding this train of those two together because they're just gold together at this point.
And they do have the biggest selling t-shirt in AEW history right now.
So I think they're going to continue for a while still, but it's going to continuously be these kind of instances where what happened, you know? And yeah, the tension will keep building.
You make a very good point.
Yes.
And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next week. And, of course, knowing us, we could be putting way more thoughts into all of this than what's actually going to happen. What we always tend to do is we always pick a lot of betrayals and, and heel turns and all these and guest appearances that never actually happen.
Yes.
But we want to see them happen.
And then, of course, the main event is the media scrum.
Yes.
Except for this last time, and it was pretty boring, I think.
Well, you fell asleep during it.
So that states a lot right there.
And the reason we bring that up is because last year's All Out media scrum basically was the watershed moment for me with AEW, where I was a die-hard, ride-or-die AEW fan. And after this moment, I started to lose love and interest for AEW.
Yeah. So we'll see Punk be on this media scrum.
Oh, he has to be.
Okay.
Will he be talking about Martha's Muffins? That's the real question.
Yeah, or Boom Boom Colt Cabana.
Oh. Or are they going to save all of that for All Out next the following Sunday?
Stay tuned.
Which I don't believe they've booked one match for that pay-per-view yet.
Nope.
2 pay-per-views in a row, basically 1 week apart. Going to cost us $100 to watch this and cover it for the content.
Yes.
But it'll be very interesting to see. And if you are a wrestling fan, why don't you give us your predictions on what could happen with All In? See how different they are than ours. So to change things up a little bit as we gear towards the end of the show, there was one early birthday present that I got that I totally did not expect. Had a kind of a rough Thursday going into this for personal reasons, but all of a sudden you decided to surprise me with a picture. Yes. And that picture was of Rifftrax, of course the ones that started Mystery Science Theater 3000. They were doing a theater premiere live show from Tennessee, but going throughout all these different movie theaters throughout the U.S. of the 80s feel-good BMX racing movie starring Lori Loughlin.
Yes.
Felon Lori Loughlin. RAD. And you showed this to me and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. I didn't know they were doing that. Yeah. And then, of course, you turned out to have already bought the tickets.
Yes.
And I had no idea about any of this. So how did you come across this?
I mean, I always check out the local theaters every once in a while to kind of see what's coming up. Sometimes they'll do special events like this. And I knew this would be one for us because we love MSDing a lot of things that we watch.
It's almost all we do nowadays. But how did you feel about the movie?
Yeah, so I never saw it back in the day. I had no idea of its existence until this came about. But it was, I mean, it is that 80s cheese feel-good factor with a lot of really whack lines thrown in that we are still saying to each other since we saw it. But it was thoroughly enjoying, and those guys are hilarious. So.
Oh yeah, they were great. The movie itself, a lot of inappropriate moments that certainly would not fly in 2023.
No.
I think that was like the first big role Lori Loughlin ever had.
Probably.
If I remember. The plot barely made sense.
Yeah.
Like it was just on the verge of collapse the entire time.
Exactly.
And, so many great memorable lines from Rifftrax. And of course, before that, to hit me right in the nostalgia fact, they did 2 little adventures of Gumby and Pokey.
Yes.
Now, I love Gumby.
I do too.
For as rappy as it is,
yes.
I love everything about Gumby and
Yes.
Pokey. I used to watch that so much as a little kid on Nickelodeon until they took away the reruns. I just loved everything about it. So seeing like 2 little adventures, like 2 of the more kind of scary adventures of Gumby. One involving a witch and one involving running from dinosaurs.
Yes.
Like I was surprised to see it like that dark for Gumby, but it definitely worked. I mean, what was that like for you seeing the Gumby short?
Yeah, no, I love Gumby too. I watched as a kid. Yeah, it was interesting to see it. I mean, it's always interesting watching stuff you watched as a kid as an adult, because a lot of times it ends up being way more adult oriented than you thought it was as a child. So yeah, it was great though.
Yeah, basically seeing Gumby and Pokey being imprisoned and looks like they're going to be executed is not normally something you would see in a children's claymation show in 2023.
No.
Of course, you don't really see claymation anymore, but that was a really fun-filled night.
Absolutely.
And definitely a very welcome surprise that I needed.
Yeah.
Now venturing into the world of gaming, of course, there is a lot of games that's going to be coming out over the next couple months.
Yeah.
I can already feel the wallets just emptying out to our corporate overlords at Xbox and PlayStation. But starting things off with stuff that we already have.
Yes.
You have been continuing on with your dating games.
Yes, I have. Love Island, the game this week was a little frustrating. So, as you know, it's our twins show this season instead of ours, even though we're the main character. And this week we played a game with the other contestants. Our couple ended up winning. But then instead of us getting to have a night in the hideaway, which is kind of like the exclusive like private room you can go with your significant other, instead of us getting it, our twin got it instead. And if we wanted to have a night like alone with our love interest out on the like little balcony area where they set something up, we would have had to pay 29 gems.
Now, is that microtransaction gems?
So you get some for free by like logging in every day, but you can buy them too.
So microtransactions. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was frustrating. So that's my end.
That's sickening, twin.
I know. Everybody on Reddit wants to just like hurt her.
No, that's not actually all. You decided to pick up another game on a whim for just for just a couple bucks.
It was on sale for $2 on the Nintendo store. It looked, from the pictures, from the video, it looked to be kind of a same kind of style and everything as Power Washing Simulator. Only once I started it, it doesn't really work at all. So if you see any knockoffs, don't buy it.
That is the lesson to learn.
Yes. Although I did see the Power Washing Simulator is now available on the Switch, but it's full price and I'm not willing to do that quite yet.
Yes, I'm able to get full price games, but you won't do it for yourself. That is so strange to me.
Yeah.
Although hopefully in October that'll change your mind because of the Batman Arkham trilogy coming to the Switch.
Yes.
Which you've seen me play multiple times through, and it would definitely be something up your alley with all the puzzles and the fighting and the mystery stuff that's going along with it.
Yeah, I might have to get that, and also Red Dead Redemption now being on the Switch, I might have to do that as well.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up next. Grand Theft Horse, otherwise known as Red
Yes.
Dead Redemption, is now officially available on PlayStation 4/5, PlayStation 5 through a PS4 emulator, and Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
Of course, the problem with that is that it's $50 for a 13-year-old game.
Yes.
But the other way to look at it is you also get Undead Nightmare from Red Dead Redemption, which is a full-on game as well. So basically, you're getting two games, basically $25.
Not too bad.
It's not too bad. I mean, yes, it's an old game, but just before we started recording, you've seen a little bit of a playthrough of the Switch version. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks like a lot of fun. I obviously see you played Red Dead 2, before, and that it's great looking.
Yeah, and I eventually want to get it on the PlayStation as well, because I haven't played Undead Nightmare since I bought the physical copy for the 360 all dem years ago. But I do want to wait until it's a bit cheaper, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, look what happened with the Grand Theft Auto remastered trilogy. That went down to like half price in like less than a month.
Yeah,
so
it did.
We'll just have to see what happens with that.
What have you been playing?
I am finishing up Evil West. I am on the final boss, which is just beating me every single time. I've also been trying a little bit of that on the new Razer Pro controller, which feels so nice to play. But I also wanted to try some other stuff out, and one game just became for free on PlayStation Plus is a horror golf game known as Cursed to Golf. It basically feels kind of like a mini golf castle or Metroidvania golf game. The idea is you're this pro golfer. It's the middle of a storm. You get struck by lightning as you have your club up and you die. And you end up in golf purgatory. And you have to play 18 rounds of these Metroidvania style levels. And you have to, obviously, like in golf, get the ball in the hole under a certain amount of strokes. And if you beat all 18, you'll come back to life. But there's a lot of horror stuff that goes along with it as well, too, which is a nice, really cool spin on it. It's a really cheap game. I mean, it wasn't a $60 or $70 game by any means.
Yeah.
But it is fun. It feels like you're playing a mini golf game. And I don't love golf, but I love mini golf.
Yes.
So it does feel like that, which is pretty cool. And coming up on Tuesday, highly considering getting WrestleQuest, the wrestling RPG that knowing me could probably last well over 100 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just exploring everything, all of the wrestling Easter eggs and guest stars that are a part of it. I think that would be a lot of fun, even though it is turn-based like we've talked about on the show. I think it could still work.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's a lot more games that are going to be coming out in just a couple weeks now. Starfield, as you mentioned. I still want you to get a proper laptop or one of those PC handhelds to be able to play Starfield, because I know this TV screen is not going to work for you.
Yeah.
And I know you'd much rather play it handheld or on a smaller screen.
Yeah.
For me, though, it's funny, I got the PS5 Pro controller, and a couple weeks later, I'll be playing Xbox for a good long time. But there's so many other great games that are coming out. Alan Wake 2, which got pushed back about 10 days, so it's closer to Halloween now, which is cool because that's a horror game. Spider-Man 2 in early October. RoboCop is getting a game, which I would love to see what that's all about. Yeah, there's a lot of cool games that are going to be coming about, and some I'll get, some I'll wait until they're more reasonably priced, but there's going to be a lot of cool things coming around in the world of gaming. All right, for TV, we never really checked anything out this week outside of the usual falling asleep to King of the Hill and YouTube stuff that we watch. But
Yes.
Next up, to conclude everything going on before we talk about stuff that we're looking forward to, we got some music stuff. There was a literal ton of music that came out the day before my birthday. So many great albums that have come out.
Yeah.
What have you been enjoying?
A couple things we checked out together. We checked out the new Mormon. So, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Children of Bodom, their keyboardist, Yanni, this is his side project, or now his main project, pretty much. I liked it. It had that Children of Bodom feel about it, which most of Mormon's music does. But this one had way less emphasis on the keyboards than previous Mormon albums, which kind of put me off a little bit. I mean, I still like it, but I was kind of hoping for more of the old school days of Foreman.
I totally agree. And that's kind of how I feel about like bands like Evergrey, where my favorite eras of the bands focus on the keyboards. Like Recreation Day is my favorite Evergrey album because it is so focused on the keyboards.
Yeah.
And that made me just appreciate those styles so much. And yes, if you love Children of Bodom, especially that later, early era, mid-era Children of Bodom, this album is for you, 100%.
Absolutely.
But if you love the keyboard stuff, you're just going to have to back off a little bit because you're not going to hear it as much.
Yeah. We also checked out the new Hell in the Club, which, again, going back to my talk about Elven King, this is the side project from Domna. It's very kind of 80s inspired, kind of that glam rocky kind of feel to it, and it's a really good, fun album.
Outside of the song where he's trying to sing like Axl Rose, it is a fun album.
Yeah.
I don't think it's my favorite Hell in the Club album.
Yeah, I can see that.
But if you just love that 80s glam hard rock sound, I think this is an album you could appreciate. I mean, not a lot of bands are doing it quite like this, so I think you should give them a shot.
Yeah. We also checked out Orbit Culture. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a very melodic death metal, modern metal, some really brutal stuff that's going on here. The band has been taking the internet by storm. They were originally supposed to be playing Prog Power this year, but they dropped out. But the band has gotten quite huge, and I love what they got going on. Like, they have so many great catchy moments. They have, like, really cool sing-along choruses. I know they're easy on the eyes for you.
They are.
Really cool stuff. I want to be able to sit down with the album again to really process it. And oh yeah, I have a lot of albums to check out this week since I got my top 10 of August 2023 coming up.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm really going to have to sit down this week and check out some more albums because so many of them came out.
Yeah, I definitely liked what I heard from Orbit as well, but I definitely need to sit down with them a little bit more. We also listened to the new Syra.
Yes, the brand new Syra album also just came out back on Friday. I really feel like Jake E. and company have really come into their own with this album. It feels like the first real full-fledged Syra album to me, where the first two albums, they were still trying to find their sound. Like, some of it had that classic early In Flames album because Jesper, obviously. The second album had more of like kind of like a mainstream kind of feel behind it, but it still had a lot of cool stuff behind it, whereas this one feels like a culmination of both, but it also has a really cool original sound for their style, where it's poppy, it's heavy, it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I'm thoroughly enjoying this one. It's definitely that great mix of styles. Couple other singles I checked out. Elm Street put out a new single.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey.
Take the Night. So it definitely a little bit of that classic Elm Street sound, and just kind of excited to see where the rest of the album goes with that. And Dokken also put out a new single.
Dokken?
Yeah, Fugitive. I really, really like this single. Like, I'm enjoying their sound right now. Like, it's kind of a very kind of dark sound for them. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes with that. Their new album will be coming out at the end of October, so.
And we forgot one particular song. Checked it out a couple days ago. I had no idea they were even working on new music.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden I see that they released a new video. It is, of course, Porcupine Tree with piano lessons. Oh, wait, what's that?
What?
Sorry. It's actually Guns N' Roses with their new song, Perhaps.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell by what I just said, basically Guns N' Roses ripped off the main riff from Piano Lessons by Porcupine Tree, which I pointed that out to you. And
They kind of did.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a bad song. It just doesn't feel like Guns N' Roses to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a different band that's trying to kind of incorporate a few Guns N' Roses. What the word I'm looking for? Habits.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, obviously it does feel like Guns N' Roses, as some, like, 3/5 of the original lineup is in the band now, again, but
Yeah.
it feels like they're trying to be a little more trendy. It feels like they're trying to be a little more modern by taking a song from the early 2000s from Porcupine Tree,
Yes.
but,
Yes.
you know, incorporating their own kind of style to it. Axl still sounds like Axl, which
Yeah.
I'm surprised about because, you know, especially with the notes that he's able to hit and stuff, like, you think that would go down in age, but he can still hit them.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. And then one thing looking forward to, next Friday, the new Hurricane album comes out, so.
Is it really Hurricane, though?
It's Hurricane.
Come on. If Kelly Hansen is not fronting Hurricane, it's not Hurricane.
I get it. It's not the same vocals, but still.
Of
They still sound good from the singles.
Of course, Kelly has much bigger fish to fry with Foreigner.
Yes.
Which he's been doing for nearly 20 years now, which is very shocking to think about the passage of time. But no, I haven't heard the singles yet.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to check that out.
Yeah.
Hurricane is one of the most underrated 80s glam hard rock bands out there.
Definitely.
And I've always felt that way. Like them and Black and Blue are just like so underrated, and they should have been bigger. So yeah, let's hope that they don't do what so many bands did in the late 90s and early 2000s and just like get rid of their hard edge and just do like light FM acoustic ballads.
Let's hope. Anything you're looking forward to?
Musically, it's so different all the time because there's so much to look forward to. I definitely have to check over, again, for my top 10 albums of August 2023. This year has been, this month has been completely haywire because of so many things that have been going on. I definitely have to sit down and check out a lot of stuff that's been going on. A lot of things have been on my radar, but I haven't really had the chance to sit down with them yet.
Yeah.
But I do potentially have one interview happening midweek.
Nice.
It's probably going to be for the lightest album to make it into my top albums of the year, but I can't wait to check that out. I'm trying to be a little vague because I don't want to lead people on in case the interview doesn't happen. That has bit me in the butt more than enough times.
Yeah.
But I got at least that going on and almost 900 interviews. That'll be 897 if that interview happens. So I'm looking forward to potentially hitting 900 interviews really soon.
Yes.
And I think with that, it's a great place to end. Thank you for checking out over 2 hours of the Heavy Debriefings podcast. Easily our longest show that we've done to date.
Absolutely.
I assure you next week will be just as long as we cover our wrestling predictions for All Out
And,
2023.
and All In recap.
And All In recap. So if you don't like wrestling, a good chunk of it is going to be on there. But remember the timestamps.
Yeah, and if there's any top 10 lists you'd like to see us do in future episodes, let us know about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In the comments, YouTube, Spotify, social media, all of that stuff under the name of Heavy Debriefings. Please let us know. And, we might come up with some really cool ideas because of that.
Yeah.
Of course, next week we'll also feature more random songs. I will be in the hot seat for What's Your Problem. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff that's going to be on next week's show. But again, check out our social media at Heavy Debriefings. That is on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and YouTube. And of course, heavydebriefings.weebly.com, because I don't want to pay for the outrageous price that they're asking for just heavydebriefings.com. For The Metal Faerie, this is the now 35-year-old Josh Rundquist. Thank you for checking out the show, and until next time, see ya.